Hello, fellow solvers. This is Cog with Cog Analytics, and today we are answering your Alteryx questions, jumping into the designer desktop discussion board, and should be a pretty quick one. So fundamentally, the ask of the problem is how can we dynamically select columns and rename them based on a secondary data set which has a flag indicating whether to keep or drop columns from our original data set. So like I said, this is a pretty simple problem, so we will immediately jump into Alteryx and get to work. So the first thing we have is our data set. So we have 3 columns, letters, numbers, and words with their respective data. And then we also have this secondary data set, which is required columns. So this has the name of the field, a rename field, as well as a keep flag as to whether or not we want to keep or remove each respective field from the original data set. Immediately, one of the first things we want to do then is understand what the data structure is for our data set. And the tool for that is in the developer section, and we need the field info tool. So this will give us things like the column names, the data types, sizing, all that good stuff. So once we have this, it will be in a very similar format to this secondary required column data set. So what we can do then is join that information together. Once we do that, we'll join on the name column. We can get rid of the redundant field. And then in this case, I'm going to get rid of all of these redundant fields. Not redundant, but extra fields. And we'll keep the original name, the rename, and the keep flag. So once we have that, we need to manipulate or create rather, a new column that will store a new name that will either indicate to us whether to keep the original dataset column or drop it. And we can rename that there as well. We'll add a new column and we'll call this new name. There we go. And this is going to be an if statement. So we want to check if the keep flag equals 1. So if we want to keep a field, then what we want is rename. And what we're doing here is we're building out a mapping from the old field name to a new field name. And we can use a dynamic rename tool to swap the two. And so if the keep flag is 0 then, or otherwise, what we want is to append a prefix, which is drop, and we'll add that on to the original name field. Okay. So there we go. So we have if keep equals 1, use the rename, so we're going to change the name to something else. Otherwise, prefix the drop prefix the field name with drop. Now what we can do is bring in another developer tool, which is the dynamic rename tool. I want to connect this right to the beginning of our data set, and we'll add these together. There we go. We want to take field names from right input rows. So this allows us to pull information directly from this data set, again, using the mapping that we've created. We're going to ignore just so we don't have any issues. We know that everything that we have in this data set is present. We're going to use name, and then the new field name is our new name. So if we go ahead and run this now, what we can see is our mapping we've created. So we have the name. Our new name is going to be character, which is based off rename. For words, it's the same thing, but numbers is we're not going to keep this for this particular iteration. And so it gets prefixed with drop and then underscore underscore. It's good to add underscores in cases like this. And one thing you'll see a lot, especially in default Alteryx macros that are built, like the data cleansing tool, for example, it's useful to prefix or denote special columns with underscores, especially 2 underscores. What you want to do is make sure that you're not going to get a clash with actual another field name. So that's one of the benefits. So you can see underscore underscore drop underscore underscore kind of a thing. In this case, this is good enough for our example. Okay, so we'll add the dynamic select onto the end of that. Select to be a formula, and this is easy enough. We want all fields that do not, and then the starts with function, and we want the name field, which you can get again up here in fields. There's a drop down, has all the metadata related to your data set. In this case, we just want the field name. So as long as the field name does not start with that prefix that we added, then keep it. Otherwise, it will drop it. So we can add our browse tool to the end of this. And what you see now is if we run this, we get exactly the same data set, except we've dropped the numbers field and we've renamed the letters to character and the words to fruit, just as we had in our required columns data set. So very simple workflow, but a good example of how you can approach solving these kinds of problems. The developer tools or the developer tool set is a very useful palette. Definitely a good place to go when you want to make your workflows more dynamic. Anyway, that's all we have for this video. Please like and subscribe for more Alteryx related content. Comment as well if you found this helpful, if you have any other suggestions, or if you have a question of your own. Anyways, I hope this helps. Happy solving.